Well, today we're going to talk about women and dieting and aging. And we're going to get some new biohacks from someone who the Huffington Post has recognized as one of the top 16 health and fitness experts, alongside others like Dr. Oz. So I am talking about Dr. Lori Shemek, who is a doctor in psychology, but is also a certified nutritional consultant and life coach. But even cooler than that, Lori is hacking her age at 64. So experience and wisdom shines through. And Dr. Lori's been making headlines on Oprah, NBC, and CNN with her campaign to bring awareness of low level inflammation and how it's the underlying cause of most illnesses, diseases, faster aging, and weight gain. And she's been talking about inflammation way before it was a buzzword. So Dr. Lori, she's not only a weight loss expert, but she's also a best-selling author who wrote How to Fight Fatflammation, The Ketogenic Key, The Beginner's Guide to Intermittent Fasting, and Fire Up Your Fat Burn. So let's learn about all of these cool things right now and meet Dr. Lori Shemek. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Zora, for having me. It really is an honor to be here. I've really been looking forward to it. I love what you do and, your mission to help us ladies and men too, to a degree, really, have a better quality of life. So thank you. And so nice to
Oh,
see everybody.
yes, it's so great to have an audience here too. And we're going to have some really great questions towards the end from them. But we're going to get to my questions first. because
Okay.
I loved your books and I love your
Thank you.
Instagram feed and how you're educating people and sharing things that are all health and wellness. But you really are into the weight loss or fat loss scene as well, and inflammation. So, but before we get into that, what I really liked when I read your book, I read the story about your mom and how she was really ill and she didn't really take care of herself and she seemed to die a little bit earlier than programmed. Was that your inspiration to move into the health space? Do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Well, thank you. Yes, it was it was completely because of her that I went into the helping profession and then on to helping others with their health. And so just briefly, I was raised by my mother and I have two younger brothers. And she was just not well. She had a constant stream of different health conditions. She was, I would say, obese, and she smoked a pack and a half of cigarettes a day. She had her diet was just junk. I remember coffee cake and coffee with sugar in it in the morning, right? And you combine that with the cigarettes and on top of all of that, her health conditions and the way she lived, she had enormous stress. She was trying to raise three young children all on her own by herself. Everybody else was out of state. And so she had no help. And then being the oldest, I pretty much took her place essentially in terms of raising my two younger brothers and cooking for them and just doing some of the nurturing, if you will, and because she couldn't do it. She was sick and not happy and not healthy. And so I remember just walking into her room as a young girl, just feeling helpless. She'd be laying there suffering. And if I knew then what I know now, it would be a whole different story. I would, she probably would still be here with us. But so she died at the very young age of 36, leaving behind three young children with nowhere to go. And so we all went to different places where people would take us, and the three of us, and we were to never live together again. And so I remember thinking that I wanted so much to help my mother. And I realized at a relatively young age, I was probably about 18, when I decided that I wanted to help others make good choices in their life, healthier choices. I wanted them to know that they actually had a choice, because my mother unlike I'm like many people, feel like they don't have a choice in life.
Mm.
And so they feel like this is the hand they've been dealt, etc. So I went on to, and I got my doctorate in psychology. I went into counseling psychology for many years. I worked for Family Outreach, an organization that helps at-risk families, and counseled the families. And I realized when I was counseling these families that I would give them a grocery list, because I was always interested in health. My mother's painful legacy,
Mm.
made me very aware of what not to do to your body. And so I knew that eating healthy would help them. And it did. It helped not only their physical health, it helped their mental well-being, it helped their motivation. Their children were much better, and the family unit was much healthier in many ways. So I did that. I became vice president. And then at that point, I decided that I wanted to go back to school.
Mm.
I did that and became a nutritionist and also a life coach, with the intent of creating my own business. And so I combine my background in psychology, the health coaching, and the nutrition background to create what my business is now, and it's called HealthWorks. And so
Mm.
that's what I've been doing ever since.
Well, you've got the missing piece. I think the psychology part is so important when it comes to health and wellness and motivation and how to stick with a plan, because everybody knows what we need to do, but nobody does it. Oh, so yeah, no, I think that's we really need to get that component in there. So you've
Very
done a great
important.
job doing
Thank you.
that. And I think more coaches or health coaches or nutritionists, we need to have that psychology part. So it's amazing you found that you went down this path, because being raised in a household like this, you could have said, that's you were taught how to behave that way. And children very often mimic their parents, but you just completely went
So
the other
true.
way. Let's talk about women over 50 and some of the issues that you see, not only in your practice and what you've learned, is what are things that are different for this population that they are for men when it comes to aging.
Well, it is different because we have a different hormone base. We have different, really everything is different for us in terms of even how we think, right?
Mhm.
And so it's different for us because we live much differently, particularly, when we're younger, when we're definitely the nurturers and caretakers. But as we age, and I've been through this, we begin to lose hormones. Men do too, but at a much slower rate. And so with women, it happens relatively quickly. And so that's why it's kind of like a spins your head around, because things change so much for us women. And because of our hormonal sensitivity, if you will, we're very finely tuned that way. We have more issues to deal with in terms of not just our physical health, but also our mental well-being, and even skin is different, for us.
Mhm.
So, it runs the gamut.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting because we know that women live longer than men, but we have more comorbidities. So we're sicker more, we have more
Yeah,
illnesses. I mean, there's different theories why, but it's just another reason why. Well, let's pay a little bit closer attention to our health and what can we do. And I the hormone component as we hit closer to 50 is a big one, especially in the weight loss space or fat loss space. And what are some of the things that women really should know about in terms of managing their weight once we start to go through menopause and even beyond? Plenty of women have gone through it and they're still struggling with their weight.
right.
And
I Yeah, go ahead.
and the whole diet component too, I need to
Right, that's
to
important.
bring up.
Yeah, that is very important. So what happens is a lot of women are afraid of, building muscle. Okay. And muscle is really your best friend when you're going through that period of time, because it really is, produces metabolic health if you have enough of it. It prevents frailty, and I could go on, but it is a key component to literally getting through menopause in a healthier way and less impactful way in terms of negative effects. And so, another component. So my point is to definitely make sure you have enough muscle mass as you age, and especially during that transition period, and also get your hormones checked, because I know a lot of people are afraid of them, but the latest research out there shows that the bioidentical form of these hormones are absolutely preventative for many diseases, including breast cancer. And so I liken it to, if we're deficient in, say, vitamin D, we would take vitamin D to replace it, replenish it, right? Same with magnesium, same with hormones. And I think that it's a really important piece that's missing. A lot of people don't talk about it because they're afraid to offend, or they're afraid to scare women off. But there's nothing to be afraid of. It is, what people are afraid of is the old estrogen that they used to give from horse urine. And so I think it's, something really important for women to be aware of as they age. And then diet. And, the diet is crucial, because it's crucial for everybody. It's our foundation of optimal health. And so you want a diet that has all the good stuff in it, and you want to also take out a lot of the bad stuff, especially as you get older. And I could go into which ones we don't want in our diet, what we should add, but I think that we'll probably get to in a little while. But so diet is key, sleep is key, supplementation is key at this period of time. It's impossible, not impossible, but it's not as much fun to age when you're not supplementing, when you're not, again, replenishing what you're losing. For example, CoQ10 we lose naturally as we age, and it's sad because people are suffering, women and men, from a lack of energy, and that coenzyme Q10 actually promotes mitochondrial health, that creates the cellular energy that keeps us happy and healthy, right? And gives us the motivation to actually want to work out and move our body. So that's just one.
I just listened to your podcast about the energy diet. Oh, was this the last one? Eating for energy.
Yeah, I'm trying
Eating
to
for
remember.
energy was
two. Yeah.
Eating for energy. I think it was the energy blueprint
Right.
website.
That's right. Yeah.
So that was super interesting.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, he's really good. And and he talks about eating for energy and incorporating protein as a key factor in, as you get older, to boost your energy level.
And he was talking about supplements as well, and a couple of them that I've never heard of, because I'm the supplement queen, supplement junkie. And
the NTF factor, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
The NT factor.
Yeah.
That one I have to look into, because
I did after our podcast. So Ari is he is the energy king, in terms of creating a healthy body, and just cellular energy is what he focuses on. And so NTF factor helps optimize mitochondria within the cell. And I said, I've never heard of it before. And he said, yeah, I'm surprised a lot of people don't know about this. And so, of course, I did some research on it, and absolutely, it does optimize mitochondrial health.
That was a great podcast. I recommend everybody to go and check that one out. The name of your podcast is This Podcast
Podcast burns fat.
Burns Fat. Yeah. This podcast Burns Fat is a great name.
Thank
And
you.
he did a great job explaining mitochondria and energy. I'm building an energy reboot program right now. And
Yeah.
so I'm
Oh,
definitely
wow.
going to connect with him. It's an energy reboot
Yeah.
for women over 50,
Oh, he'll
right?
love that. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's like you said, when we go through this menopausal transition, we lose our energy, right? And so, you say, okay, well, let's go build muscle. Well, I don't have the energy to go to the gym, right? So, there's so many things we can do in terms of diet and supplementation. What else would you say? You said it's important to build muscle. So how would you go about that?
Yeah, it is very important to build muscle and not to be afraid of it, okay? Because guarantee you that the last thing you want when you're older is to be frail, especially if you fall, and which happens to 50% of men and women, they fall. And it's a horrendous statistic about who actually walks again, okay, after that fall. And that's after, believe it or not, after age 50, because as we age, a lot of things go downhill, including our muscle mass, which keeps us upright, and our balance. And so but yeah, it's really important to make sure that you do have that energy, you do have that muscle mass, and diet is key. Sleep is another factor
Mm-hmm.
that we can talk about, and of course exercise.
Mm-hmm.
It,
Well, it's like
every,
this big, there's a holistic approach, right? Because you can say, and as you said, I'm a gerontologist, and we have whole classes covered on frailty and falls and fall
oh wow,
prevention.
yeah, you know,
And oh my gosh, how much could we talk about fall prevention? But and in the beginning, I was like, why? What's going on? And like you said, the statistics are horrendous. When you
yeah,
do fall, I can't remember the exact number, but it was very high percentage of people actually die
very,
within 6 months. It could be from infection from the operation, from their fall. It could be because they stopped, exercising and they stay home, they become depressed. There's so many reasons. And so the fall prevent, if you just didn't fall in the first place, none of this would have happened. So, and because women lose their estrogen as we age, well, then we have more osteoporosis and we have more frail bones, and then you fall and then you break the bone, and it's just this just spirals out of control. So it makes perfect sense to say, let's keep our strength, let's keep muscle mass, let's keep strong and mobile, agile. But it takes work to do that. So if you have
yeah.
no energy, let's talk to Dr. Lori, and get some good diet tips, or get some good
Or Ari Whitten.
supplements. Yeah, or Ari, and this is so it's kind of like, or you get sleep. Maybe you just need to go to bed, instead of scrolling through Instagram or something. You need to actually go to sleep, or correct the sleep because of the loss of the hormones, right?
Yeah,
We have
exactly.
hot flashes, and it comes out at all angles. So like, where do you even start? Which is
Well, that's a really good question and a good point, because I remember I had Dr. Dale Bredesen on my show. I did an interview with him, and he has actually reversed Alzheimer's in people, and so he thinks that uh, it's not just the one hole in the roof, that leaky roof. It's not just that one thing that's going to do it. He says there's a lot.
36, I think he said.
Yeah, right. And so it's not just that one thing. And so if we can get used to doing that one thing and then doing the next thing and implementing it into our daily life, that is actually the way to go, instead of trying to do everything at once, because it becomes not sustainable if you do too much too quick. But but having said that, staying healthy as you age takes focus. It takes more energy because you have to think about it. There is more energy output because you're doing things, you're such as, you're walking more, or you're having to think about what you're eating. But having said that, it is relatively easy to stay healthy as you age. And you just have to know and be aware of what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Health literacy, I think is another chapter we covered in gerontology. And that is very, very important. The more literate you are in reading health information, then the more chances that you're actually going to apply it and use it well.
Right.
Right. So let's say, okay, we got to go build muscle. We need more energy. And let's say we're going to start with the diet because you're a nutritionist and you wrote books on fatflammaging and all that. So
Mm.
let's say the diet is kind of pulling us down. We're not able to sleep because we're eating garbage or we're not eating the right energy foods, and we're waking up tired, so we're not going to go to the gym. Let's say we're going to start with that. So what would you say? What are you seeing women in over 50, and I'm talking about women in their 60s and 70s and 80s as well? What are they? What kind of diets are they following, if at all? And what would you recommend them to do to get
Well,
started? Yeah.
yeah. So to get started, I would absolutely do two things. Okay. Number one is eliminate sugar from your diet. And number two is eliminate seed oils, the industrial processed oils that many people are eating and they think are healthy. All right.
Mhm.
So these oils, canola oil, corn oil, vegetable oil, soy oil, grapeseed oil. I mean, these are examples of oils that are highly refined. And in the refining process of them, they become oxidized just in the refining process, and not even to mention, not even to mention that when you're cooking with them, they oxidize the heat, and the fat creates a more inflammatory oil. So the oils that you're ingesting become part of your cellular membrane and part of the matrix of your cell. So the type of fat you ingest has a huge impact. It's powerful on your health. So if you're ingesting these types of oils, then you're going to be gaining weight. You're going to have poor metabolic health. You're going to be craving food, and you'll be tired all the time because your mitochondria are not getting the nutrients they need. What happens is when you ingest these oils, the membrane stiffens up, and it's the matrix of the cell does as well. And so nutrients and other things cannot pass as easily through to the cell, into the cell.
So even
And
if
so
you're eating an apple or something healthy, then it just the nutrients from that vegetable or whatever is
very
not
little.
even going into the cell.
Right.
Mhm.
People become malnourished and they have no idea that they are, and why they're suffering, why they can't sleep, why that they, no matter what they do to lose weight, they're not losing weight. And
Mhm.
it's these darn oils. And then on top of that, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but on top of that, you combine these oils with sugar, which is often the case, right? So any processed packaged food is going to contain, these oils and or the combination of sugar and these oils. And so sugar is a one and done thing. If you eat the sugar, your body metabolizes it, it's gone. It's not healthy, but it's gone. But it also harms your mitochondria. And we can talk about how important the mitochondria are in a minute, but so that is a really important thing. But the oils, I would say, are even worse because
Mhm.
it takes years to get those oils out of your system. Okay.
Mhm.
And so they become, again, part of the cell membrane. And remember, we have cells everywhere, right? Our skin, our eyes, everything is, we are made up of cells. And so we do not want that kind of fat. If you um, saw how, say, canola oil, which many people believe is very healthy, including these big healthy supermarkets,
Mhm.
that is just really destroying your health. And if you saw how it was made, it's a very inflammatory oil. I forgot how many step process it is they have to deodorize it, and it smells so bad, and
Mhm.
it's oxidized.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
unfortunately, when we eat out, very often restaurants are using these oils because one, they're cheap, they don't go bad, they are,
Right.
they don't change the taste or flavor of some kind of dish that they're making. And, there's many reasons. So unfortunately, I'm one of those weirdos that stick my nose in the kitchen when I go to a restaurant. Like, when I try to check out what oils they're doing, because if I ask the waiter, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy, or, I don't know. I just stick my head in there, because you're right. It is that important. And I'm lucky to be in Spain today. So I've stuck my head in a lot of the restaurants here, and because it's
That's
cheap to
great.
get olive oil is kind of standard here. So we're pretty lucky with that. But,
Where are you?
I'm in Spain, in Marbella, the very south of
Oh,
Spain.
yes, you have wonderful olive oil. Oh my goodness. I
Yeah.
actually took a bottle back with me on a trip, from a trip.
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
wonderful oils. And so it's easy and cheap to get here. So we're kind of lucky, but most other restaurants are not quite doing that. So you can't really trust when you go out, really, who knows
Not
what's
in the
going on.
United States. No, no. If, it's few and far between that they're using true olive oil. And you have to, that's, alluding to what I was talking about earlier, just exerting more energy as you age. That's one thing you have to do, is to make sure that you eliminate these oils and the sugar. And also when you're looking for oil, a healthy oil, you have to exert that energy as well to make sure it's, a really good, do the research quality, because even though they say 100% virgin olive oil, that is not necessarily the case.
Yeah. And you want to get that
I get
extra virgin olive oil, right? Because you have in your book, you were explaining just refined olive oil or just normal olive oil is
right.
very different than that extra virgin olive oil, right?
Right. Right. That's a great point. And because what they do is to save money, they spike the olive oil with these other unhealthy oils I was talking about. And
Terrible.
so there goes, your investment in olive oil
Yeah.
and health. So it's very important to uh, be aware. Pretty much California oils are safe, Texas oils are safe, and they have really good olive oils. And then Spain is another. Italy had some real serious issues with the spiking of their oils.
Mm.
And yeah, so it just, if you go online, research, or if you contact me, I'd be more than happy to help you.
Oh, great. Then we can go, get the same ones that you get.
Yeah.
So, so let us know then, this is really ties into your theory of fatflammation. Why don't we explain what that means?
Sure. Yeah. So there are three types of inflammation in the body. And the first type is called acute inflammation. And that is a very important component to our optimal health. It actually is a necessary part of our immune system. It helps us heal, right? So it's called acute because it happens the minute we have an injury, but it's not so cute because, it hurts, it's painful, it's swollen, it's uncomfortable. And that's why people think it's bad, but it's really good. And so let's take a cut on the finger. If you cut your finger, an enormous amount of inflammatory molecules are released, and soldiers, if you will, rush to the site of the wound. They repair the wound heals, the soldiers go away, the inflammation goes away, and all is well. That's acute inflammation, very important. And always remember that inflammation in any form is an immune response, okay? And so the next type of inflammation is called silent or chronic inflammation, which many people have heard of. And this type of inflammation is the core underlying cause of most illness, disease, faster aging, and weight gain. And so it is this silent inflammation that even its name suggests it's not healthy, right? Because we don't know it's there. 75% of Americans are walking around with this type of inflammation and they don't even know it. And so it's the core underlying cause of most illnesses like cancer, diabetes, obesity, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoporosis, and the list goes on. Most every health condition. And you think about people who have died from a sudden heart attack, that is silent inflammation right there as an example. And so what you want to do is you want to stop this type of inflammation, and you want to resolve it. Because when we have this kind of inflammation going on, wherever, it's kind of like having a sore on the inside of your body that never heals, is what it's like. And so we want to stop it. We want to resolve it. And there are ways that we can talk about doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next type of inflammation is what I refer to and call is fatflammation. It is a third type of inflammation. Our fat is our largest organ in our body, and it is an organ, and it's very active. It's metabolically active. It's sending out messages here and there throughout the body. And the problem is that as we gain weight, our fat cells get bigger. There's more storage in there. They expand. They become cranky, and they begin to act as if they're infected. So they begin to put out inflammatory molecules as they act infected, right? And so these inflammatory molecules are literally slowing the metabolism down. And so our goal is to reverse the inflammation in the body within the cellular inflammation. And another thing that's important to know, it's just like silent inflammation, but within the cell and the fat cell, which operates differently than other cells in the body. Okay. So particularly visceral fat, that's the bad guy. The fat, other types of fat we have in the body, the white adipose tissue, the flabby stuff we can see, that is fat that's been stored. Okay, may not like the way it looks, but that's a definitely healthier type of fat than the fat that we see on the belly. So if your belly is hard and big from fat, there's fat that's being stored in and around the organs behind the belly. Okay, so, which is why it's hard, and that is sending out serious inflammatory molecules. And so the one thing you don't want is that type of fat in your body. It's specifically because it leads to metabolic disease, such as type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, high blood pressure, you name it, poor metabolic health, and obesity. So what we want to do is we want to literally intervene and reverse inflammation within the body, remembering too that with silent inflammation and this type of fat cell inflammation, it goes on 24/7.
So we do need, when we're talking about fat inflammation, this adipose tissue, we're talking about excess fat, because we know that actually having a little fat on the body is protective, and we're not saying fat is bad and all that. Actually, the longest living people in the world have a little bit of fat on them, right?
Right.
So it's more that excessive fat that we're talking about. So that is the fat inflammation. So that's caused by what? What is leading us to this fat inflammation? And why are we having this fat? Yeah, this extra storage of fat, especially as we age, right? For some reason, we can get away with it, right? When we're younger, we can eat sugars and these inflammatory oils and whatever we want. And then our bucket gets full. This allostatic load is just falling over, and the body just can't seem to handle it anymore. So it's coming from the sugars, the inflammatory oils. What else is contributing to fat inflammation?
Right. So then the reduction in hormones is leading to poor health, right? And it is kind of a vicious cycle, because as we gain more weight, we produce more inflammatory molecules, which slows the metabolism, and then we gain even more weight, and again we're producing more of this inflammation. And I neglected to mention that this inflammation sets up anywhere in the body, anywhere you're vulnerable. Okay. So people wonder why that they have this, and this, and it could be directly related to the fat that they have on their body. They can, if you go in for a marker CRP test that tests your inflammation, they can, with research, have determined that 6 months prior, simply due to the amount of inflammation you have, that you will be gaining weight simply because of that inflammation. So it's a combination of a lot of things, and it's different for everybody. It's also genetic. We have to remember that there is a genetic propensity for this as well. But no matter what it is, we can actually mitigate it and reverse it. So that's good to know. So diet is important. Like all the things we mentioned earlier, are very important.
So you, in your book, you talked about an anti-inflammatory diet or an fatflammation diet.
Right.
So how is this diet different than your general anti-inflammatory diet? Because you're the diet that you talk about really targets the inflammation in the fat cells.
The difference between, there is not much difference at all, but the difference is that one might go on a diet, say the Mediterranean diet, which is a very healthy anti-inflammatory diet. But in this case, if you're wanting to also lose weight, you'd want to increase your protein in your diet. Okay, at each meal, ensure that you have adequate amount of protein. And, when you combine that with strength training or any form of resistance training, that is beneficial, then you will absolutely lose weight and you will age even healthier, when you're doing it that way.
So what do you think about women who are going through menopause or just post-menopause, and they're exercising like crazy, they're eating practically nothing, because what do? You're like suddenly go, okay, I'm gaining weight and I'm not, with the same foods that I'm used to eat, I can't, stay in my shape anymore. So I must be diet and exercise. So they start to eat less, exercise more. But I've had clients where it's not working, right? You're saying, well, okay. And what I've learned and I think I've talked to you a little bit about Dr. Stacy Sims too, is that, you might get some very, women who are like this. They're really exercising a bit too much and not eating enough and not like fueling their workouts. So,
Yeah,
where is that fine line?
Yeah, to me. So I wrote a book on intermittent fasting for beginners. And I even state in that book that do not, especially for women, do not fast longer than 16 hours. 12 to 14 hours is a sweet spot for women. And that way you get some of the benefits of, you don't get the full, complete, say, for example, autophagy in its full sense at 12 hours, but you do get benefit. And so what I have seen with my clients and so many people is that they struggle when they're fasting for a long period of time. It is because the one thing, as I sound like a broken record here, but muscle mass is critical. Okay. And so when you are fasting for a long period of time, especially if you're a woman, then you are risking your muscle mass. You are going to lose muscle mass. And that's the last thing you want to do. So, that goes back to your question about, well, what do we do? And one of the main things we want to do is make sure that we keep that muscle mass going. So if you are, struggling to lose weight, you absolutely must, look at your diet, make sure that you're incorporating the right things. And we can talk about that when you want, take out the wrong things, and then add in some strength training in any form you wish, resistance training in any way. And there are other things such as hydration that are a huge part of this. But definitely don't do excess fasting.
Mhm.
It's not healthy for you if you're trying to lose weight in particular.
Yeah, this is what I've learned a lot from Dr. Stacy Sims as well. It's just when
Yeah,
she looks at the studies about men and women, because most of the studies on intermittent fasting and keto diets are done on men. And so we
right.
know it works. And that's actually coincides really well with my clients. The men could always do that really well, the keto or,
Yeah,
and the women just
yeah.
struggled. And even though if they could get the results, and now I understand there's a lot of hormonal differences between men and women. And unfortunately, we just don't have enough studies on women and dieting and keto and intermittent fasting and stuff like that. I mean, it's coming, but it's just, not enough. So sometimes I tell my clients, like, really, if it's not working for you, don't worry.
That's
You're a
exactly what I
woman
say.
and it's
Yes,
probably
exactly.
very normal.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying, don't try it or don't try keto or intermittent fasting, but it may not be for you. And that's because we're women and we have hormones and we need to adjust. And you have people like
Mhm.
Dr. Mindy Pelz, who talks a lot about this topic, and she adjusts it for the menopausal woman or the
Mhm.
woman's, you're according to your menstrual cycle. And that, I think, is really good. If you're going to experiment with that, really try to learn more about how to do it for you, for a woman.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
so go
and
ahead.
I really think that one thing that I think a lot of women, and men too, if we think something's good, we're just going to go all out, right? And do more of it.
Mm,
And so I think, it does work for some women, and that's fantastic. I mean, that is fantastic. But most women, it doesn't work for as well, and that I have found. And so, yeah, so it's just be mindful and be, not excessive, I think.
mm.
Is
So
the right
let's say we're going to build muscle. How much protein does an older woman need?
Well, my general rule is about 1 pound per pound of body weight, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And that sounds like a lot, and it can be incorporated, but through, protein powders, et cetera, if you find it's too much for you. But generally, it's not that bad. I mean, it's really not. I mean, you look at, uh, you know, that much of a steak is what? How many grams of protein is that? So that's
Mhm,
like 30 grams of protein right there. And that's a steak,
mhm,
and you add in fish and other forms of protein, seafood. And so, I think that if you try to incorporate as much as you can, that is going to have very positive benefits for you. And also, if you can't, there are things you can add, like protein powder. And also, creatine is one supplement that is very beneficial for women, and especially a woman over 50, because it positively impacts brain health. And so we want to prevent dementia, and we want to optimize our, because there's a lot of brain fog,
mhm,
during this period of time. And so it really is beneficial. So it promotes muscle mass, it helps you become stronger, quicker, and so, and whey protein powder is also excellent. Some people are worried about the insulin bump, but it's transitory. It's, the body, it's so funny because with carbohydrates, for example, people freak out because they go, "Oh, it rose my glucose by this much, and my insulin by," and everything comes right back down. That's the healthy individual, right? It's the individual whose insulin stays high for 2 hours after
mm,
they eat, for example. That's unhealthy. And if your glucose comes right back down, that's the way it should be. So, I think that there is, I'm not sure how many of you know about continuous glucose monitors, but they're a great way to determine how your body reacts with different foods, the glucose
mhm.
spike. Um, and so they're a great way to see what's going on with your body, but I don't think that they're the end all and be all in the
Mm.
end.
Yeah, I love those glucose monitors. Little, just slap it on your arm and you get a real personal reading. I mean, they're not perfect science, but it does give you a great idea sort of where you're at, and you'd be surprised, how you react
Really
to different
surprised.
foods or to
Yeah.
stress. You say, I didn't eat anything all day. And why is my blood sugar going up? Well, the stress it will also increase your blood sugar levels. And a lot of people are very surprised by that. But
Yeah.
I want to
There's
go
a
in. Go ahead.
study, I don't know if you're familiar with a study out of Israel that where they gave the participants white rice. Half of
Yeah.
them
No,
had a blood,
brown rice. I think it was
was
brown
it
rice
brown?
on top of it.
Half of them had a blood sugar spike and the other had flat, nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And they said
That
it was
shows you
ice
how
cream was
deep we
better
are.
for them than brown rice. Remember?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Crazy. That's a great TED talk. I'll see if I can include that in the show notes. So there's a TED talk on that study.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
And so I want to talk about the diet, go a little bit more into the diet if somebody wants to fight fat inflammation. But I also want you to point out some foods that are quote unquote healthy that actually
Oh, yeah.
aren't, that we get
Right.
fooled by. And a lot of people are
Right.
not aware of that actually it is contributing to fat inflammation and we think it's healthy for us.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Important one, actually. So if you are going to the grocery store and you're picking up a package of whole wheat bread and some yogurt and what else? As I'm just thinking off the top of my head, the
Granola
um,
bar,
some juice, right? Granola
juice.
bar.
Yeah.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's really unhealthy because what you're doing is buying refined foods. First of all, that whole wheat bread has as much sugar in it that would spike your blood sugar super high, right? As much as 2 tablespoons of sugar would do. That yogurt has more sugar actually than a candy bar. And the juice is simply liquid sugar. That's the last thing you want to do, especially over 50. You do not want to burden your liver. You want a healthy, happy liver. And so if fructose, which is fruit sugar, is metabolized directly in the liver and a lot of people drink a lot of it and it leads to a fatty liver. And so we do not want that at
Mhm.
all. So those are examples of healthy foods, and like the granola bar is one. There are other types of foods that are out there that people are buying that are very unhealthy. But as I was talking about early on, the seed oils are huge. So even if, say, another example would be a keto food, that's the new marketing label, keto. And you must look at the ingredients and look at the amount of carbohydrates because it is not keto and it is very unhealthy. So,
So
they're using, it's not monitored. There are no guidelines for saying something is keto, right?
Mhm.
So they're using seed oils, they're using sugars. They have an enormous amount. I was looking at a keto cauliflower pizza, and it had 75 grams of carbohydrates, right? And I said, those poor people who are buying this
You're
are
supposed to
actually
eat only
getting
one slice, though.
yeah.
Not the whole pizza, really.
Well, they think that it's because it says keto that it's low carb. And I think that was per slice. I think it was like
Oh my goodness.
I know.
That's crazy.
That,
I always say, to read the labels, and very often I call this keto crap because it's
yeah,
just a huge list of ingredients. And most often they're ingredients that you shouldn't be, you first of all can't read alphabet soup and you don't know what it means. And then if you don't know what it means, you're probably better off not putting
yeah,
it in your body.
right.
So yeah, that's the keto. It's the marketing. And we get this when we go into those healthy supermarkets and we think that everything is safe, and it's not. And I
Good
really,
point.
think people need to,
Excellent.
gosh, read labels.
Really bad. And even so like one big, huge, healthy supermarket everyone's probably aware of, they make their own like chicken salad and tuna salad and things like that. If you look at the ingredients, after the chicken and tuna is canola oil,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So that right there, it's an inflammatory dish that you're eating, and most people think it's healthy, right? But
Yeah.
it isn't. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there are good things you can buy.
Ye-
Some keto breads are really healthy for you. They're made out of egg whites and flax seeds and all sorts of other really healthy foods, almonds and things like that, that you can find in the freezer section.
mhm.
So, and also that's for the keto people out there, but, um,
In
you
North
know,
America, because outside of there, I don't know how easy we can't find stuff like that in Spain and Europe.
right.
It's really hard. Do you have any websites that you recommend for cooking your own keto bread or healthy, breads at all?
Um, yeah, Dr. Eric Berg, are you familiar with him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he has the best bread recipe. I made it.
Really?
It was so delicious. And it was lower in carbs, but it was made with yeast. And so you had to let it rise, just like regular bread. It smelled so good when it was and tasted so delicious. And so it's called the healthiest bread in the world recipe. And it's
Oh,
on a
really?
YouTube, and it's fantastic. So I really recommend people try it.
Can I ask you about fat inflammation? Imagine you have a great diet and you're exercising, but you have a lot of stress. Can that contribute and create fat inflammation?
Absolutely can. Yes. And most people have heard about cortisol, right?
Mhm.
So when we're under a lot of stress, we secrete a lot of cortisol, and that cortisol is really good for us during, you know, certain times of stress, but not chronically. If over time it begins to promote insulin resistance, sugar cravings, carbohydrate cravings, weight gain, and so, one of the things that I think is really important for people to do is to really hack their stress, to make sure, and you've done this really well with what you've been doing, in terms of
Mhm.
showing people how to do that. So it's really important to keep your stress level down, because yes, you can absolutely gain weight even if you're doing everything right. It's still going to put the pounds on.
Okay, we're gonna hack our stress too. A couple more questions, and I'm going to open the mic for everyone else. I love the podcast you did with about cholesterol, and it was keto and cholesterol or something like that. And this is where we learned about lean mass hyper responders.
Mhm.
And I know that you were giving the interview, so but I just think it's a very important point to bring out to women who are athletic and lean, and they have these crazy high cholesterol levels, and so you get scared. You're like, am I going to have a heart attack even though
It's
I'm
scary.
doing
Yeah.
everything right?
Right.
Any thoughts that you took away from that podcast?
Um, Not really, because they still have a lot of research that needs to come out, but to follow up with this research to really give any good guidelines. But what it was interesting to find out is that the people that have the sky 300, say LDL, right, or total cholesterol, 300, say, and they're doing keto or they're doing the carnivore diet, their LDL was like super high, and that would be scary to hear that number. But everything else was perfect. Inflammation was incredibly perfect. Everything, insulin, everything. And
Mhm.
so generally, what you find if we have inflammation, cholesterol that high, is we find all the other markers are poor as well.
Mhm.
And so, but here we have really great markers, but we have a high cholesterol. And then they found that simply adding in carbohydrates actually brought down the high cholesterol back to normal. Isn't that
Yeah,
interesting?
like within 7 days, just putting a
Yeah.
sweet potato or in your
Yeah.
diet, or half a sweet potato. I mean,
Right.
it was interesting. And I really, I think I would love to see, I know he's doing a study now, but I would with these hyper responders, but I would love to see it in particularly in women, because women need carbs. I mean, this is really important for our
That's a,
hormone
yes,
production, and
right,
this production of kisspeptin, that neuropeptide that Dr.
right.
Stacey Sim always talks about, that's responsible for our sex hormones. So, carbs are not always a bad thing, but and that's super interesting how that's just by adding a little bit, especially because those people are having, super healthy diets, quote unquote. But for them, just something simple. I thought that was a really great podcast. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I just want to say that um, a lot of people who are very adamant about carnivore diet or keto, um, don't be afraid of carbohydrate. I mean, they're very adamant about it, but I'm here to say that carbohydrates are your friend. Don't be afraid of them. Don't vilify them. They're here to help you. In fact, you can gain more muscle mass eating carbohydrates as well. So.
Mm. Yeah. So that's like we could do a whole other podcast on that, on our macros and building muscle. But what is the biggest myth you think women over 50 need to be aware of?
Well, I think that they like, and also men too, that are older, feel like that they can't build their muscle back. They can't, regain their health, that they're too old. And that is simply not the case at all. Just the opposite is in fact. And, there's, I don't know if you're familiar with the compound Urolithin A. Well, there's a company called Amazentis who did the research on this with Urolithin A with 80-year-olds, and they gave this Urolithin A to them every day for, I believe it was 4 weeks. It was a study. It was a randomized control trial. And what Urolithin A does specifically is to build more mitochondria, and that's a really very important point for anybody who's 50 and over. Okay, that's that your goal should be, is to build mitochondrial health. And so they did a biopsy of these 80-year-olds muscle. They took a biopsy of their muscle and found that literally this Urolithin A spiked their mitochondria. They had so much mitophagy and biogenesis going on in the body that they had the mitochondria of a much younger person in their 40s and 30s.
Wow. Yes, that is incredible. So where do we get that stuff?
So is Timeline is the name of it. It's Timeline,
Oh,
and it
really?
actually promotes mitophagy, which is the complete remodeling of our mitochondria,
Oh,
and
wow.
promotes the biogenesis of them, new ones, and just anti-inflammatory as well. So that is something that I think is important for older people to know about, in terms, and there are other things that people need to know about as you're aging. You've heard of the studies of 80 and 90-year-olds building muscle mass,
Mm.
right? And
Train
so,
with Joan, to name one, started when
right.
she was 70.
And, you look at Jack LaLanne's wife, who's still around on Instagram and stuff. So, it can be done, and
Yeah.
it's not hard. It's just doing it is what it is.
So one more last question, and I let you guys ask your own questions too. What is the one thing you do every day that helps you get your health to where you are today? Because you look amazing and you obviously take really good care of yourself. And we'd like to know what you do.
So let's see. So the one thing, so what I do every day is I'll lift, I'll do some pull-ups, right? I'll do 8 to 10 pull-ups, and I'll do some push-ups. And so I just do that no matter what. Okay. And then and so for my exercise, I do elliptical, and I do high intensity interval training with my body. Okay. So I do the combination of elliptical first, and then I'll do the high intensity. And when I say high intensity, it's just my high intensity. So don't let that name scare you when you see the word high intensity. It's just, you do the best you can do, right? Because for you, that is high intensity. And so I'm trying to think. And then I supplement, like I was talking to you about earlier. There are certain supplements that I think are really important.
What are your top 3?
The top 3: magnesium, absolutely; CoQ10, absolutely; and fish oil. And because I never got to it, but we want to, as I mentioned earlier, we want to stop the inflammation, and we do that with the fish oil. And then when there's inflammation in the body, there's always tissue damage, no matter if it's a, blood cell or whatever, there's tissue damage. And so we want to resolve that inflammation with phytonutrients, and you can get those from plant foods. All the phytochemicals in plants will help you heal that tissue, or you can also supplement with phytonutrients.
Great.
So,
excellent. Oh, well, you gave some great tips. Now we're all inspired. So let's ask everyone here, if you've got a question, you can unmute, as first come, first serve. Just go for it. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi there, Zora. I guess
Hi,
I'm
Stephanie.
number 1. Hi, Lori.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm just so inspired by everything you've mentioned.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, as you know, I've been primary caregiver for my parents for a couple of years.
Right.
And they both passed now. So I kind of wasn't into the time-wise, the exercise mode. And so I'm just inspired by, building muscle. And I'm actually, I know about training with Joan. I've seen her at age 70 and how well she's done. So it's a matter of doing it. And, I'm getting on track. But say someone, like, I'm just a little bit, I know you've mentioned a few things about supplements, the Urolithin A. Would I have to supplement with that, or just rely on my exercise?
So you would have to, pretty much, because what happens, Urolithin A is a metabolite of the elagitanin that's in a pomegranate, right? So when you eat a pomegranate or you drink the juice, the elagitanins are broken down by the gut microbiota. And it is that Urolithin A from that produces these robust mitochondria. But the problem is only 30% of people have that capacity in the population.
Taking Urolithin A, would that be like a short term or long term, or?
I would recommend it long term, because we're aging, right? And as we age, and Zora and I didn't talk about this, but as we age, we lose mitochondria, and we lose a number of them and the health of them. So they're not as robust. And so one of the things we want to do is create, want to keep them as youthful and robust as possible as we get older. And this will help you with energy, muscle mass. The more we have more mitochondria in our brain, in our heart, and in our muscles in our body, like our biceps, etc. So it's that those are the mitochondria workers really in the body that we need them there.
Okay. So along with the coenzyme Q10, like I take the ubiquinol.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
And
if you could pair that up, go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, if you could pair that up with PQQ, they work synergistically. PQQ.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, check that. I don't know that one.
Yeah, and they're very important team players, if you will, together. Yeah, for mitochondrial
what company is that, may I ask?
I think, I'm trying to think of the one I use. I can't remember. I think it's Gero is the one I use.
Oh, okay. I'll kind of Google it.
But yeah, I'll email you or message you.
Okay, sure. So then you mentioned about the MT factor. Would that be something else? I'm not familiar with that one.
That is something else. Yeah, that is, it helps to rebuild and optimize mitochondria. Again, very important as we age. And you can find that it's a company called Anti-F factor.
Okay.
I think it's
Can you
NT
take too much
factor.
of all this, or is it just something a
No,
couple I should
because
focus on?
they're all food-based products, you know. Coenzyme Q10, we lose it naturally as we age. So
Right.
it's very important that, you know, so it's very effective for people with congestive heart failure, for example.
Okay.
They take 200 milligrams a day. And so I would say 1 to 200 is just fine. There really isn't a toxic amount to take. But if you are on any prescription drugs, check with your doctor just to make sure. Okay.
You know what? I'm proud of myself for that I'm on no prescription drugs. Just the supplements, and someone says, geez, you take a lot. Maybe that's helping me.
Warrior. That's
Yeah.
great.
So I one other question. So when you mentioned about having your hormones checked, which ones would they be? Like estrogen, progesterone?
Yep.
Anything else?
Testosterone, you know, many women think testosterone isn't important, but it is just as important as estrogen and progesterone. So make sure you get those tested. And if they show low, then I would definitely talk to your doctor about what you can do to replenish them, you know, and make sure that because you'll feel so much better. You know,
and what time of day would you suggest taking these supplements?
After you eat. Because
so in the morning after you eat.
Right. And
whenever.
you know, we didn't talk about our circadian rhythm, but it's a very important piece of optimal health, right? So if you go to bed the same time, you wake up the same time, you eat at roughly the same time, and you take your supplements. Everything is, even our gut bacteria operates on a circadian rhythm. And so the healthier it is, the healthier you will be.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
Okay.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Great questions.
Thanks, Dr. Lori.
Sure.
Hey, Pauline.
Oh, hi. I have a couple of quick questions. One is, can I take olive oil in place of fish oil?
Actually, it's not the same. Although it is the king of oils, olive oil is fantastic for your health. The thing about fish oil, it has DHA and EPA in it, right? And those are the two important fatty acids, omega-3 fatty acids that are critical for brain health, stopping inflammation in the body, and optimizing cellular health overall. So you definitely want the marine version if you can get it. Then the algae version is it has DHA and EPA in it, but not as much as fish oil.
So what is olive oil good for?
Olive oil is good for everything. I mean, it optimizes it's really one of the best foods you can add to your anti-inflammatory list. It reduces inflammation by adding in a boatload of phytochemicals. And that's what we need. And, you know, I talked about resolving inflammation in the body in terms of healing the inflammatory damage. That olive oil would be a go-to for that. And so would all sorts of spices, any kind of spice, but, you know, turmeric and you name it, any kind of spice is very important to add. Just a small amount is all you need.
Oh, okay. And, you know, I'm sorry I joined in late. You probably said something about hormone replacement therapy. Do you feel that there's a ceiling to the number of years that a person can do hormone replacement therapy?
I think that women can do it into their 80s just fine. I don't see any downfall. The women, my clients that I have and have dealt with in the past, and you know, things that we see in research shows that there really isn't. You know, women feel just fantastic as they age doing that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Pauline.
These are great questions. I always love the Q&A at the end.
Yeah, me too. I do too.
Raquel, you have a question? I see you unmuted. Raquel, let's see. Oh, maybe she's just unmuted for some reason, but I don't hear her. And Juliana, how are you?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Juliana.
Hello. What an
It's so
honor.
nice to see you.
So wonderful to see you. I'm
Same
a
here.
huge fan, Dr. Shemek.
You're so funny. Thank you for
So wonderful to see you live.
Thank you. It's so nice to be
Here is,
here.
my
There
favorite
it
book.
is.
See all
Thank
the
you. Oh my goodness. A student, a true warrior.
and highlight and highlight. And I try most of the recipes too. There's recipes in the book.
Yeah, they're really easy recipes, and they're really delicious too. And you've actually made them where they're even better, which I love. You've actually improved on them.
They're easy, and they're just ingredients that are easy to find, and everything healthy, yummy.
Thank
So
you.
my question
Yes.
is about the supplements. Do you recommend the veggies and the fruit capsules that I've been approached by a lot of people offering me that and saying that, oh, we don't have enough, we don't get enough through the day, but how just eating healthy through the day, I always thought that would be enough. Our body will know what to do with. And then suddenly there's a lot of new products out there with the veggies and the fruit and gummies. I would like to know, what is your opinion on that?
Yeah. Okay. So number one, our soil is not as healthy as it used to be. So we're not getting the amount of nutrients we used to get, say in broccoli. We don't get as much of the sulforaphane, for example, that we used to get, right? It doesn't mean we're not getting any, but it's not as much, just to let you know, as we used to get. But there's something missing when we're taking supplements to replace vegetables. We're missing, we don't know yet why, but there is a benefit to eating the whole vegetable or fruit, right? And it's just, what the theory is that there really are so many phytonutrients that we don't know about or haven't been able to detect. So that's part of the reason that we don't know why we're healthier when we eat the whole vegetable and fruit. Having said that, though, there are instances where, say, if you carry the APOE3/4 gene for Alzheimer's, right? So if you take a blueberry extract, for example, that would benefit your brain health and be very protective cognitively for you, most likely. So there are instances where you use supplements for targeted situations, and like part cherry extract for arthritis, for example, as a supplement. But taking it in place of, I wouldn't recommend, because you also need the fiber from the vegetables to feed the healthy gut bacteria, and they eat the fiber that we can't digest, and they create something called short chain fatty acids that really help optimize our health and our gut health. So does that help? Okay, good.
It reminds me, I saw Ben Greenfield share what he eats in a day, and it's mostly meat and not many vegetables. He uses a vegetable powder, and
I saw that too. Yeah.
And I think he has gut issues. I think it's a problem with digesting the whole vegetable or something like. I don't know his personal story, but I know that probably people like
he does. I think you're right about that. I think he said that before. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's maybe an instance, you need to
Yeah.
get it. And if you cannot, for some reason, get it in you. And I'm sure he'd love to probably, eat all these
Yeah.
vegetables, but cannot.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and because some people are sensitive to vegetables, they just can't eat them, and that's why people go on the carnivore diet, and they do so well. They, because they're not adding vegetables into their diet or any type of lectin or anything that will disturb the gut bacteria. I mean the gut lining.
But they're lacking the fiber, which we knew
Yeah, I
that's
know.
super important.
So my feeling about the carnivore diet is that I think in the short term, it's very healthy. I really do, for people who have gut issues. But I believe in the long term, a couple of years down the road, I know there's Amber O'Kern, or I think that's her name. She's been on it for 10 plus years and doing just fine. People with schizophrenia have been on it for a while and do very well. They're managing their mental illness. And so there's definitely a call for it. But personally, I believe we need, if you're going to do it, you need to be very focused and do it very intelligently. You need to be eating a lot of organ meats and a lot of healthy meats that were raised healthy. And the same with being a vegan, right? Or a vegetarian. You need to make sure that you're doing it properly in order to really benefit from it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Eating nose to tail, I think, is the way to go. But a lot of people don't do that. It grosses them out.
Right.
But then you're not doing it with the right intention. But yeah, it is work. I mean, it's hard enough. I mean, to find a diet, just period, that fits with your lifestyle. So,
Agreed.
you just have to be ready for whatever it is you decide to do. Make sure you do it correctly and with getting enough nutrients in
Very
you.
smart. Do it smart. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to not feel well a couple of years down the road, because we have endogenous antioxidants and enzymes, et cetera, that will take care of us for a couple of years, but those will run out if we don't replenish.
Well, I am going to have to let you go now. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your knowledge. And before I let you go, are there any last words before I tell people where you can find you?
Actually, I would just love to say thank you for everybody listening, and for those of you who tuned in here. It's so sweet of you to do that. And just know that any change you make in your life, just one small step, literally simply adding something like more spices to each meal is huge. Drinking more water is huge, is going to really change your health. And, I really, getting older can be distressing and stressful, but remember we didn't talk about the hacks to reduce it, but, Zora has a lot of that on her site. So definitely check that out. But yeah, and also know that whatever you do, you are worthy of doing it. You are truly a magnificent, unique creature and wonderful human being. So always remember that you're a gift and deserve all the best life has to offer.
Oh, I love that. That's a beautiful, beautiful last words. Really great. Thank you so much. I want people to know more about you, and they can find you on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Always, Dr. Lori Shemek, and your website, drlorishemek.com. I'll have all the links in the show notes. Please, everyone, go and check out her books: How to Fight Fatflammation, The Ketogenic Key, The Beginner's Guide to Intermittent Fasting, Fire Up Your Fat Burn. These are fantastic books. You can find them all on her website. And if you go to the website and you sign up for her newsletter, you'll get The Beginner's Guide to Intermittent Fasting too. So that's a little freebie, right?
Yes, absolutely. So just sign up for the newsletter and it's on its way to you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I think we need a part 2, and hopefully I'll see you again.
Thank you all. Bye. See ya.